weekly for class. If you look at the schedule, it says 7. That is correct. We start Life Team at 7 p.m. sharp, but we have a free dinner at 6:30. So come anytime between 6:30 and 7. That dinner cost is included in your registration fee. So we figured there was no reason to push the meeting to 7 tonight, so we started at 6:30. But if you already ate, you're coming from somewhere else, we start at 7 sharp. I'm very timely, so we'll be done at 8:30 sharp. So really what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through these requirements, and then if there's any questions for the large group, I'll probably take 2 or 3, and then I will stick around to answer any individual questions that you have. So in our Archdiocese, confirmation is a 2-year program. This is diocesan-wide. So this is year 1. So what makes confirmation really is a few requirements. The first is a class requirement. So this is Life Team, but Life Team is open to all high school students. So there'll be juniors, seniors, sophomores, as well as freshmen in attendance. What the diocese asks for is general catechesis. That means general lessons about our faith. So this year, we'll have lessons about scripture, about sacraments, about the creed, all mixed in throughout the year. So that is what happens at Life Team. What makes this confirmation 1 specifically is the other requirements, which I will walk through. So you have attendance. The diocese wants us to have 80% attendance. We have 18 classes. I'm allowing you to miss up to 4. You are better at math than me. You know that is more than a 20% miss rate. So I'm actually giving you more like 75% attendance you have to be here. So if you are going to miss more than 4, that needs to be communicated to me. Why? We have 100 people in this class who are all following the same requirements, so I can't allow someone to come to 2 classes and somebody else has to come to 18. Everybody's got to do their best to come to all the classes. If you miss, every single time you miss, so let's say you only miss twice all year, you have a short makeup assignment. It's very easy. It's not meant to be difficult, but we are teaching the lessons for a reason. So email me, and I'm more than happy to send you that assignment. So that's every time you miss. Sometimes people think, oh, I only have to do makeup if I miss 5 or 6 times. No, it's each time that you miss. The next thing that is very important is the paperwork. This is the most confused thing, so I will say it slowly. I'll repeat it, but please pay attention. We need a 6-month copy of your baptism certificate. So what that means is I cannot accept your original baptism certificate. I need a copy that is time-stamped in the last 6 months. The reason for this, without getting into all of it, is in the state of Texas, a baptism certificate is a legal document, meaning that people forge it to try to gain citizenship, things like that. It's above me. We don't care if you're a citizen or not when it comes to confirmation, but what we do care is in order to be confirmed, you must first be baptized. So we need a legitimate baptism certificate, so we need it time-stamped in the last 6 months. Almost all parishes in the United States of America, for sure in our diocese, know what we're talking about. So if you were not baptized at St. Mary's, a parish can very quickly send us that time-stamped copy. As long as it is time-stamped in the last 6 months of me receiving it, you don't have to get a new one next year. It doesn't have to be within 6 months of the confirmation date. It has to be within 6 months of me receiving it. Does that make sense? Can I take the original? No. And I say this because we have confirmation in 2.5 weeks, and 2 weeks ago, someone who's been in this program 2 years gave me an original copy. So I'm trying my best to not have this happen again, right? So I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you have, even if you're like, I'm sure he's been asked this a million times. I have, but don't worry, you're not bothering me. Go ahead and ask. We want to make sure we have the right stuff. But a 6-month copy of the baptism certificate. If you were baptized at St. Mary, there's a form in the packet that explains how we go about that. The inscription promise. This is very simple but important. It says, I agree to come to all the classes. If I miss, I'll do the makeup work. I will give a 6-month copy of my baptism certificate. Why? Because when it's 2 weeks from your confirmation, if you never came to class, if you never turned your baptism certificate, I'll say, I'm sorry, you're going to have to wait till next year to get confirmed. And you're going to say, why? I'm going to say, because you signed this form that said you do all these things, and you did none of them. Other than that, we are on your team. I think sometimes people see the Archdiocesan requirements and they feel like it's another thing. I want to express confirmation is super important, but it should be super enjoyable, and it should be something you look forward to. We don't want to stress you. So if you have questions, concerns, Please use me as a resource. We don't want this to be another thing on your plate. Something that I tell our teens time and time again is I was a big athlete in high school and college. So I played 2 sports in college. I was a really good student. Grades were very important. And confirmation was just another thing, right? I enjoyed it, but it's like, man, this is another thing on my schedule. But I share each year that in the last few years, I lost both my parents, right? And as I sat with my mom as she was passing away, I didn't care what was my class rank when I graduated. I did not care that I played sports in college, but I did care about what I learned in confirmation because I wanted to know what happens when someone dies. Is God present in this moment? Why does God allow bad things to happen to good people? And these are the things that we cover. So this is important. So I don't want this to be a stress, but I don't want you to just think, oh, this is a dumb thing that we just have to do to get the sacrament of confirmation. No, we do everything here for a purpose. We have a really strong, welcoming community that wants you to grow in faith, that wants you to feel like you're home, that wants you to be connected, and wants to answer those big questions that you have right now and that you'll continue to have in life. So please don't hesitate to ask any questions. This is for students. When you're at class, we have a box where you can anonymously ask faith questions. We get to those each and every week. We want this to be a space that is inviting and welcoming for all. So I throw that out there because right now, sports are very important to you, academics are very important to you, and that's great, and they should be. But know that our faith is important. I hope it's important now, but if not, there'll be a point in your life where you're going to want to know what you believe, and this is the place where we learn it. So we have a lot of fun. We play a lot of games, but we also always have a lesson, even if it's a short lesson, because if you want to just have fun, you could go hang out with your friends. You could go watch a movie. There's always a faith lesson here at the church. All right, moving on, the service log. This is another thing that is sometimes confused. This came out of COVID. We ask for service projects, not service hours. Why? I would much rather you do something of quality than quantity. So I don't care that you went and you stood at a fish fry for 10 hours if you didn't do good work, right? I want you to serve people in need. So the way that a service hour counts here, a service project counts here, is a minimum of 2 hours. So let's think about this. If I go to the bazaar and I help for 4 hours and I go home, how many service projects? 1. Exactly. Sometimes people go, well, it's a minimum of 2, so that's a minimum of 2 hours, so that's 2 service projects, right? No, you did 1 thing. However, it does end up being less hours than we required before. Again, I want good quality over quantity. So anything that helps people in need, if you help at a nursing home, if you help at the Special Olympics, if you help at the food bank, all of those things 100% of the time count. Anything that builds up our parish directly, we believe that we're Christ's church. So if we are helping at a bazaar at our parish, if we are helping at a fish fry at our parish, those things count. We do not count like carnivals at an elementary school. That is a good thing, and you should volunteer for those. But those do not help somebody directly in need, which is my job as a youth minister. I'm trying to allow you to interact with those on the margins. Those are the people Jesus asked us to serve. So if you have any questions about that, please reach out. That's why it says have them pre-approved. If you help at the food bank, you don't have to have it pre-approved. That's going to count. But if you are uncertain, ask me, because I don't want you to go do 20 hours of service and then realize that it's not the service we look for. Just think, does this help someone who is in need? If so, it's definitely going to count. If you're uncertain, I'm more than happy to answer any questions on that. Is there any questions on service in general? Perfect. I'll keep moving. Let's see. A prayer journal. This is cool. We added this a few years ago. So this is completely optional, but it can benefit you. So it can benefit you in multiple ways. It can help your spiritual life, and it can be used in place of makeup work. So we started something a few years ago called a prayer journal, where kids could journal about how their prayer life was going. And let's just say you pray a Hail Mary before bed each night, and you do that for a month, and that's the depth of your faith. You're probably not going to see a ton of fruit. The Lord will still bless it. And so people who are keeping a prayer journal realize, oh, wow, like I'm really growing in faith as the year goes on, or I'm doing the same 2-minute prayer, and maybe I need to challenge myself to grow. So it's an entry that I will read. So, you may not want to include like David's the worst youth minister, right? Maybe not put that in your journal because I will read them. But a completed prayer journal is 18 entries at any point over the year about how your prayer life has been going. If you choose to complete this, which is optional, if you miss 4 or less classes, you do not need to do any makeup work. Your prayer journal would count in that place. Why? I want you to pray. I value that, and I think this is a great tool to help you pray better. So again, that's optional, but it's a really awesome opportunity. And then lastly, you are required to go to a Confirmation 1 retreat. So this is any of our summer events. We do a mission trip. We do a week-long summer camp. We do a weekend conference in Houston called AYC. We have a day retreat in December. Any of those would count as a Confirmation 1 retreat. It's simply a retreat, which is a time where you take time for God outside of your regular schedule. Year 2 has a specific retreat. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. Is there any questions? John, am I missing anything? Yes, we're going to have a couple of parent nights this year. This is something we did a lot before COVID, but then COVID happened and we needed to minimize the people here. So who was the first people we kicked out? The parents, right? Hey, we need space, but we want to invite you back. So don't worry, teens. Your parents will not be in your small groups. They're not going to be like hanging out with you all night. What it will be is we will have a large group discussion in here or in the church. We'll have a really dynamic speaker that night. It might be myself, it might be Father, it might be a guest speaker. We often have guest speakers who come in. And then when the teens break for small group, we'll have an extra session for adults with that speaker, with myself, with Father. And then the teens will be in small group with their regular small group leaders. So don't worry, teens, because sometimes I've had teens like, I'm going to tell my parents not to come. I don't want them to be in my group. I'm not going to make them in your group. They can sit with you at dinner. They cannot. I'll leave that to y'all. But we will have at least one each semester. And we'd love for you to be a part of our team. We always need more volunteers. So if you're interested in volunteering, we're still doing that. And then this might seem counterintuitive, seeing that we're at the meeting. But if you are not registered for this year, that ends on August 31st. So maybe you got this email from someone else who forwarded it to you. I've been using last year's email list. As of September 1st, I'm moving to this year's only. So make sure you're registered. If you don't know, shoot me an email. I'm more than happy to double check that you're registered. If you don't remember doing it, you probably didn't do it. So we can get you taken care of this week, but please register. So again, what makes a Confirmation 1 is the class requirement and the additional things. So we just went over the additional things. Life Teen happens Sunday night at 7. We follow what's called the gather, proclaim, break, and send model. So we always gather normally a fun game, some sort of icebreaker. We have a dynamic speaker who'll share with us. Then we'll have time for our teens to break open what we talked about in small groups, because we normally have between 150, 200 teens at a Life Night. So you can feel like a huge number, and in small groups, it's 8 to 10. So you'll have a chance to share what you got out of the night, what questions you have, and then we close with some sort of prayer activity or something to take home the lesson for the night. So honestly, that's really about it. I don't want to take more of your time than I need. So I can probably take 2 or 3 questions that apply to everybody, and then I will stick around as long as I need to answer any individual questions. So does anybody have a question that they think they know or that applies to everyone? Jennifer. It is not mandatory, but highly encouraged. And if you do it and you miss class, which most likely you will miss one of the 18 classes, you will not need to do any of the mandatory makeup work. But no, it is not mandatory. Anybody else? Mm-hmm. If you have it done, I will 100% take it. So the inscription promise, if you want to sign it and turn it in, if you want to turn in the baptism date, great. John can take it at that back table on your way out. Any other questions? Yes. Good. A sponsor, it is highly encouraged a sponsor is a godparent. I will answer a question I get. It can only be one person. So a lot of times people say, can it be both godparents? I don't know why that's the rule, but it is the rule. It can only be one. So 2 people can act like they're your sponsor in real life. That's what matters, is people who are there, who can pray with you and walk with you. But one person over the age of 16, confirmed and in good standing with the church, cannot be a parent. This is for the sponsor. So can't be a parent over the age of 16, confirmed and good standing. We're not going to investigate if they're in good standing. But if your sponsor does not go to Mass, that is not a good choice for your sponsor. This is someone who's going to help you grow in faith. So if they're not practicing your faith, I wouldn't recommend choosing that person. All right, I'll take one more, and then I'll stick around as long as I need. Yes. Yeah, so the food bank, anything outside of St. Mary's, you arrange on your own time. But I know the Houston Food Bank is always looking for volunteers, can take it every day of the week pretty much. The Galveston County Food Bank is a little bit more sporadic, but if you contact either of them, they're looking for volunteers and they can tell you when. I recommend parents go with their teens. It's a great way. They can go with their friends, but we don't coordinate like a day where we all go to the food bank. So the food pantry here, the problem is it's during this school day. So in the summer, teens will help with the food pantry, but it's open Wednesdays from 10 to noon. So it's not a super great option. But if your teen wanted to organize a food drive to donate at our food pantry, I would definitely count that.